Montana Territory, 1875. The sun hung wearily over Timber Creek, casting long shadows across the dusty main street as dusk approached. 25-year-old Nathan Irwin leaned against the weathered post outside the general store, watching travelers with wary eyes. He had seen enough in his young life to believe that the frontier was a place for survival, not sentiment. Love was a luxury for those in civilized places, not for men who rode the wild edges of America. His lean frame carried the strength of years working cattle, his face handsome with features chiseled by sun and wind. A light stubble shadowed his jaw, and beneath the brim of his hat, intense gray eyes missed nothing. He adjusted the Colt on his hip, the one certainty in an uncertain world. Never trust a stranger with more than the time of day. His father had taught him before dying in his arms during an Apache raid 7 years prior. That lesson had saved Nathan's life more than once in the years since. The town bustled around him as he observed a family unloading supplies from their wagon. Their laughter struck him as foreign, almost foolish. Connections were liabilities out here. Every person you cared about was just someone else who could be taken from you by outlaws, disease, or the unforgiving land itself. "Coffee's hot if you're staying," called Martha from the doorway, the older woman who ran the boarding house where Nathan occasionally took a room between cattle drives. "Just passing through," he replied, the words so familiar they required no thought. He had been just passing through everywhere for years now. It was safer that way. What Nathan wanted was simple: earn enough from this cattle drive to buy his own small spread somewhere remote. What he didn't realize was how the solitude he sought would eventually hollow him out, leaving nothing but survival where a life should be. As the sunset painted the mountains purple, a commotion drew his attention down the street. A fine carriage had stopped outside the sheriff's office, unusual enough to warrant interest in a town like Timber Creek. From it emerged the most striking young woman Nathan had ever seen. Her golden hair was piled elegantly beneath a modest traveling hat, and her blue dress, though wrinkled from travel, was of fine quality. Tears streaked her face as she rushed toward the jail, ignoring the curious stares of townsfolk. Nathan found himself straightening, unable to look away from her obvious distress. He might have walked on, might have minded his own business as he always did, if not for what happened next. The young woman, she couldn't be older than 22, stumbled on the uneven boardwalk. Nathan moved without thinking, catching her elbow before she could fall. For one moment, her wide hazel eyes met his, and something unfamiliar twisted in his chest. "Thank you," she said breathlessly, then pulled away. "Please, I must speak with the sheriff immediately." "He's likely on his rounds," Nathan replied, surprising himself by continuing the conversation. "Won't be back until morning." Fresh tears welled in her eyes. "I cannot wait until morning. My father has been taken by Silas Quinn and his men. They left a ransom note demanding $5,000 by tomorrow noon, or they will." Her voice broke. "They will kill him." The name struck Nathan like a physical blow. Silas Quinn, the outlaw who had a bounty of $2,000 on his head for robbery and murder across 3 territories. The same man Nathan had been tracking quietly for months, hoping to collect the bounty that would fund his solitary dream. "Miss," he began cautiously. Olivia Bryson," she supplied, wiping her tears with a delicate handkerchief. "My father and I were traveling to our new home in Helena when they ambushed our wagon. I was gathering flowers by the creek when it happened. When I returned, they were gone, and only this remained." She thrust a crumpled paper into his hands. Nathan read the crude note quickly. The demand was clear, the threat unmistakable. "Miss Bryson, men like Quinn don't typically keep their word, even if you pay." Her shoulders straightened, a fierce determination replacing her tears. "I know the risk, sir, but he is all I have in this world. Please, can you direct me to someone who might help? A guide or tracker, perhaps. I have money." The prudent thing would be to walk away, to let the law handle it, to not get involved in someone else's tragedy. But Quinn's name kept echoing in his mind, along with the image of Olivia Bryson's father facing the outlaw's notorious cruelty. "I know these mountains," he said, the words emerging before wisdom could stop them. "I could track them. You would help us?" Hope illuminated her face, transforming her beauty from striking to breathtaking. "I have business with Quinn myself," he said carefully. She gripped his arm, her fingers pressing into his sleeve. "Please, save my father," she begged, her voice breaking on the words. Something in her desperation, in her willingness to face danger for family, stirred memories of his own loss, of how he'd been unable to save his father that day years ago. "I'll save you both," he replied, the promise escaping him before he could consider its weight. Nathan knew, as the words left his mouth, that he had just broken his own cardinal rule: never make promises on the frontier. But looking into Olivia Bryson's hopeful eyes, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. By dawn the next morning, Nathan had assembled what they needed: 2 sturdy horses, provisions, and weapons. He found Olivia waiting outside the boarding house, now dressed in a practical riding outfit that Martha had helped her obtain. "Have you ridden before?" he asked, eyeing her skeptically. "Since childhood," she replied, mounting the mare with practiced ease. "My father raised me to be self-sufficient, Mr. Irwin. I will not slow you down." As they rode out of town, Nathan laid out the harsh realities. Quinn and his gang are likely camped in the Blackwater Canyon. It's rough country, easy to defend. We'll need to approach carefully. "You seem to know a great deal about them," she observed. Nathan kept his eyes on the trail ahead. "I make it my business to know about men like Quinn." "Are you a lawman?" she asked. "No," he said simply, offering nothing more. They rode in silence as the sun climbed higher. Nathan found himself studying her profile when she wasn't looking, the determination in her jaw, the grace with which she handled her mount. She was Eastern educated, that much was evident in her speech, but there was frontier resilience beneath her refined exterior. "Tell me about your father," Nathan said as they stopped to rest the horses at a small stream. Olivia's expression softened. "Professor Edward Bryson. He taught natural sciences at Cornell University until last year." She smiled at some private memory. "After my mother passed, he decided we should start anew in Montana Territory. He has accepted a position at the new academy in Helena. Quite a change from university life." "Father believes in new beginnings," she said. "He says the frontier is where America's future is being written." Nathan couldn't help but scoff. "What's being written out here is mostly written in blood." Her eyes sharpened. "Is that truly what you believe? That there's nothing here but violence and struggle?" "I believe in seeing things as they are," he replied. "The West doesn't forgive illusions." "And yet," she countered, "families build homes here. Communities grow. Children are born and raised. There must be more than just survival." Her words unsettled him more than he cared to admit. Before he could respond, he noticed fresh tracks cutting across their path. Multiple horses, heavily laden, moving fast. "They came this way," he said, changing the subject. "Not more than a few hours ahead of us." As they continued their journey, Olivia proved herself more capable than Nathan had expected. She rode without complaint through difficult terrain, helped make camp efficiently, and kept pace with his demanding schedule. Each night, as they sat by the small fire, he found himself sharing more than he intended: stories of cattle drives, of the lands he'd seen, of the people he'd met in his wanderings. In turn, she spoke of her life in New York, of her father's scientific expeditions, of her own dreams to perhaps teach someday. Her voice softened the harsh wilderness around them, creating moments of unexpected warmth in the gathering darkness. On the third night, as they camped in a sheltered grove, rain began to fall. They huddled under a crude lean-to Nathan constructed from canvas and branches. "We're close," he said, studying his map by lantern light. "Quinn's likely holed up in one of these old mining cabins in the canyon." Olivia nodded, pulling her blanket tighter around her shoulders. "Do you have a plan?" "I'll scout their position tomorrow, then wait for nightfall to move in." "I'm coming with you," she stated firmly. "No," he responded immediately. "Too dangerous. He is my father, Mr. Irwin." "Nathan," he corrected automatically. After 3 days on the trail together, formality seemed pointless. "Nathan," she repeated, his name soft on her lips. "I did not come this far to wait safely while others determined my father's fate." The rain intensified, drumming against their shelter. In the close confines, he was acutely aware of her, the faint scent of lavender that somehow persisted despite days on the trail, the golden strands of hair that had escaped her practical braid, the stubborn set of her chin. "This isn't like gathering flowers by a creek," he said harshly. "Quinn's men won't hesitate to kill you. I am aware of the danger. Are you? Have you ever looked down the barrel of a gun? Seen what bullets do to flesh and bone? His voice had roughened with remembered pain. "You have," she said quietly. It wasn't a question. The rain filled the silence between them. Thunder rolled across the mountains. "My father died in my arms when I was 18, Nathan finally said. "Apaches raided our homestead near Fort Davis. I couldn't save him." Olivia's hand found his in the dimness. "I'm sorry." He should have pulled away. Instead, he found himself continuing. "I swore I'd never watch someone else die that way. Never feel that helpless again. Is that why you wander? To avoid caring for anyone who might be lost?" Her insight struck too close to the truth. Nathan withdrew his hand and moved to check that the horses were secure, needing distance from her perception. When he returned, Olivia was staring into the lantern flame. "My mother died of influenza 3 years ago," she said without looking up. "I watched her fade a little each day, unable to help. I understand what it means to be helpless in the face of loss." Nathan sat beside her again, closer than before. "Then you understand why I can't risk your life too. I understand that fear of loss should not stop us from doing what must be done," she countered. "My father taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action in spite of it." The storm raged outside their shelter, but within it, something shifted between them. Not just understanding, but recognition. Two souls familiar with grief, discovering common ground. When dawn broke, clear and bright after the storm, they set out together. Nathan still objected to her accompanying him for the final approach, but agreed she could stay at a vantage point where she might observe without being in immediate danger. They left the horses concealed in a stand of pine trees and proceeded on foot. Through his field glass, Nathan counted 5 men at the old mining cabin. Quinn himself lounging on the porch, 3 men playing cards by a fire pit, and 1 standing guard on a rocky outcrop. "Your father is likely inside," Nathan whispered as they crouched behind a fallen log. "I don't see anyone else." "He's alive." Olivia's voice trembled with hope. "Quinn wouldn't keep a dead man. The ransom is his goal." Her eyes filled with tears of relief. "How will we get to him?" "We wait until nightfall. The guard rotation changes at dusk. I've been watching their pattern. There's a brief window when we might approach from the western ridge." "What if they move before then?" "They won't. Quinn is too confident, and this position is too defensible." As the afternoon waned, they retreated to a sheltered position to wait. The hours stretched between them, filled with tension and unspoken fears. Olivia's hand found his again, and this time Nathan didn't pull away. "Why are you really helping us?" she asked suddenly. "It's more than chance that you know so much about Quinn and his methods." Nathan considered evasion, then decided on truth. "He killed a friend of mine last year. A ranch hand named Thomas who once saved my life during a stampede. Quinn shot him down for the payroll he was carrying. So this is about revenge?" "Justice," Nathan corrected. "And the bounty on his head would give me the stake I need." "For what?" "A place of my own. Somewhere quiet, away from." He gestured vaguely at the world beyond. "Away from people," she finished for him. "A place to be alone." When he didn't deny it, she continued softly. "Solitude is a poor companion in times of trouble, Nathan. These past days have shown me that." Before he could respond, movement at the cabin caught his attention. A rider approached from the east, dust kicking up behind him. Quinn emerged to meet him, their conversation animated but too distant to hear. "Something's happening," Nathan whispered. "This changes things." Through the field glass, he watched as Quinn gave orders, men scrambling to pack their gear. "They're leaving," he said urgently. "We have to move now." "But your plan?" "No time." They must have gotten word of something that spooked them. Nathan checked his Colt and the Winchester rifle slung across his back. "Stay here. If I'm not back in 20 minutes, ride for Timber Creek and bring help." Olivia caught his arm. "We go together or not at all. This isn't a debate." "No, it isn't," she agreed, drawing a small derringer from her pocket. "My father gave me this for protection when we first set out west. I know how to use it." Nathan recognized the stubborn determination in her eyes, the same look she'd worn when she'd first begged him to save her father. He knew arguing would only waste precious time. "Stay behind me," he conceded. "And if I tell you to run, you run. No questions." They worked their way down the rocky slope, using the vegetation for cover. The outlaws were distracted, focused on their hasty departure. Nathan spotted Professor Bryson through a cabin window, an older man with Olivia's same golden hair, his hands bound. but alive and apparently unharmed. When they were within 50 yards of the rear of the cabin, Nathan signaled Olivia to stay put. He'd circle around, create a distraction, then free her father during the confusion. But as he moved away, a sharp crack of breaking wood beneath Olivia's foot alerted the nearest guard. The man spun, rifle raising. "Run!" Nathan shouted, firing twice in rapid succession. The guard fell, but the damage was done. Shouts erupted from the cabin. Bullets splintered the trees around them as Nathan pulled Olivia behind a boulder. "Stay down," he ordered, returning fire to give her cover. Quinn's voice cut through the gunfire. "Hold your fire, boys." The outlaw leader stepped onto the porch, dragging Professor Bryson with him, a pistol to the older man's temple. "I know you're out there. Show yourself, or the professor gets a third eye." Olivia gasped in horror. Nathan pressed her flat against the rocks, his body shielding hers. "What do we do?" she whispered, her face pale with fear. Nathan assessed their situation grimly. They were pinned down, outgunned, with Olivia's father as leverage. The situation was deteriorating exactly as he'd feared. "Listen carefully," he said, meeting her eyes. "I'm going to create an opening. When I do, you get to that stand of trees to our right. The horses are just beyond. I won't leave you and my father. You have to trust me," he said, surprising himself with how much he meant it. "Can you do that?" Something passed between them, an understanding deeper than their brief acquaintance should allow. She nodded once, resolute. Nathan took a deep breath, then called out, "Quinn, I'm coming out. I've got your money." "Nathan, no," Olivia whispered urgently. He pressed his hand to her cheek briefly. "Be ready to move." Standing slowly, hands raised, Nathan emerged from behind the boulder. "Silas Quinn, I believe you're looking for payment for the professor there." Quinn narrowed his eyes, keeping his gun against Professor Bryson's head. "Who the hell are you?" "Name's Nathan Irwin. I represent the Bryson family interests." He took a careful step forward, drawing all attention to himself. From the corner of his eye, he saw Olivia slip toward the trees as planned. "Where's the money?" Quinn demanded. "Safe. Release the professor first." Quinn laughed. "That's not how this works, friend." "It's how it works with me," Nathan replied, continuing his slow approach. "I've dealt with men like you before. Your word means nothing, but I'm authorized to make payment once I confirm the professor's well-being." He was close enough now to see the professor's face clearly. The resemblance to Olivia was striking. The older man's eyes were calm despite his predicament, showing the same courage his daughter possessed. "Check him if you want," Quinn said with a smirk. "He's alive. For now." Nathan nodded, taking another step. He was counting the men, noting their positions. 4 visible, including Quinn. 1 unaccounted for, likely circling behind. "Professor," Nathan addressed the captive directly, "are you harmed?" "I am quite well, considering," the professor replied steadily. "Though I would prefer less disagreeable company. Your daughter sends her regards," Nathan said meaningfully. Understanding flickered in the professor's eyes. He was being told Olivia was nearby, safe for the moment. "Where's this money, then?" Quinn pressed, growing impatient. Nathan reached slowly toward his vest pocket. "Right here. The bank draft you requested." As Quinn's attention focused on Nathan's hand, Professor Bryson suddenly drove his elbow hard into the outlaw's ribs. In the split-second distraction, Nathan drew and fired in one fluid motion, catching Quinn in the shoulder. Chaos erupted. The professor broke free, diving for cover as Nathan fired again, dropping another outlaw. But Quinn, despite his wound, managed to squeeze off a shot that grazed Nathan's arm before disappearing into the cabin. Gunfire erupted from multiple directions. Nathan pulled the professor behind an overturned wagon, checking the older man for injuries. "My daughter," Professor Bryson asked urgently. "Safe, if she followed instructions," Nathan replied, tearing a strip from his shirt to bind his wounded arm. A bullet splintered wood inches from their heads. They were still in grave danger, pinned down with limited ammunition against determined opponents. Then, unexpectedly, shots rang out from the ridgeline, exactly where Olivia should have been escaping, not engaging in a firefight. "That girl never listens," Professor Bryson said with surprising pride. Olivia's covering fire, while amateur, created enough confusion to give Nathan an opening. He took down another of Quinn's men, leaving only Quinn himself and one other outlaw. "Stay here," he told the professor, then moved quickly from cover to cover, working his way around to flank their attackers. The final outlaw fell to Nathan's rifle, but Quinn was nowhere to be seen. Then a terrifying scream cut through the gun smoke. Olivia's voice, filled with fear. Nathan ran toward the sound, heart pounding with dread. He found them at the edge of the clearing, Quinn holding Olivia hostage, his gun pressed against her throat, his face twisted with pain from his shoulder wound. "Drop it, Irwin," Quinn snarled. "Or she dies right now." Nathan froze, his rifle half raised. Olivia's eyes locked with his, wide with fear, but also determination. "Let her go, Quinn," Nathan said carefully. "It's me you want." "What I want is to get out of here alive," Quinn countered. "And she's my ticket." He began backing toward the horses, dragging Olivia with him. "You won't make it 10 miles, Nathan warned. "That shoulder's bleeding badly. Far enough to send her back in pieces if you follow." Nathan lowered his rifle slowly, mind racing for a solution. The moment crystallized everything he'd been running from for years. The risk of caring, of connection, of losing someone who mattered. Because somehow, in just days, Olivia Bryson had come to matter. "Take me instead," Nathan offered. "I'm worth more to you. There's a bounty on me in New Mexico." The lie came easily. Quinn hesitated, greed warring with suspicion. "What bounty?" 500 for rustling army horses at Fort Stanton. As Quinn considered this new information, Olivia moved suddenly, driving her heel down hard on his instep, while simultaneously reaching for the small derringer concealed in her sleeve. Quinn howled in pain, his grip loosening just enough for her to twist away. The derringer fired, a small sound compared to the larger firearms, but effective at such close range. Quinn staggered, clutching his leg where the small bullet had struck. Nathan didn't hesitate. His rifle cracked once, and Quinn fell. The threat ended permanently. For a moment, everything was still. Then Olivia was running toward him, and Nathan found himself meeting her halfway, gathering her into his arms as if it was where she had always belonged. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, checking her for injuries. "No," she said breathlessly. "Just frightened." "My father." "I'm here, my dear," Professor Bryson called, limping toward them with evident relief. Thanks to this young man's remarkable courage, the reunion between father and daughter brought an unexpected tightness to Nathan's throat. He turned away, ostensibly to check the fallen outlaws were truly incapacitated, but actually to master the unfamiliar emotions threatening to overwhelm him. When they had confirmed all of Quinn's gang were either dead or securely bound for transport to the nearest lawman, they gathered their horses and prepared to depart. The bounty on Quinn would be collected, but Nathan found himself thinking less about that and more about the journey ahead, back to Timber Creek. And then what? As they rode, Professor Bryson engaged Nathan in conversation about his background, his knowledge of the territory, his plans. The older man's intellectual curiosity was matched by genuine warmth that made it impossible to maintain Nathan's usual reserve. "You have quite a talent for tracking, young man," the professor observed. "Have you considered putting those skills to use with a scientific expedition? I have colleagues who would value such expertise." Nathan had never considered his frontier skills might have applications beyond survival. "I plan to buy some land." "Live quietly. Alone?" Olivia asked softly, riding beside him. Their eyes met, and the question hung between them, suddenly loaded with meaning neither had anticipated when this journey began. "That was the plan," he admitted. "Now I'm not so certain." By the time they reached Timber Creek 3 days later, something had fundamentally shifted in Nathan's worldview. The town that had been merely a waypoint now looked different, not just a collection of buildings, but people with stories, connections, possibilities. As they delivered Quinn's body to the sheriff and collected the bounty papers, news of their exploits spread quickly through the small community. Nathan found himself the object of admiration rather than the anonymous drifter he'd always been. Professor Bryson insisted on continuing to Helena as planned, once he had recovered from his ordeal. "We have a new life waiting there," he explained to Nathan as they shared a celebratory dinner at the hotel. "And I believe you would find it a welcoming community. The Academy could certainly use a man of your capabilities." The invitation was clear, but Nathan's gaze was on Olivia, seeking something he couldn't quite name. She met his look directly. "The frontier needs men who understand it," she said. "Men who can teach others to respect its dangers while appreciating its possibilities." I'm no teacher, Nathan objected. Everyone has something to share, Professor Bryson countered. Knowledge comes in many forms. That night, Nathan stood on the hotel balcony, staring at the stars. Tomorrow, the Brysons would continue to Helena. He had his bounty, enough to buy that solitary patch of land he'd dreamed of. The path he'd planned stretched before him, yet it suddenly seemed hollow. A soft footstep behind him announced Olivia's presence. She joined him at the railing, her profile luminous in the moonlight. "Have you decided?" she asked simply. "About Helena?" "About hiding versus living." The directness of her question struck him. For years, he had been existing rather than living, moving rather than building, surviving rather than thriving. "I lost my family once," he said slowly. "I convinced myself it was better not to risk that pain again. And now I wonder if the greater risk is never allowing myself to care at all." She turned to face him fully. "When I begged you to save my father, and you promised to save us both, I think perhaps you were also saving yourself." The truth of it resonated deeply. Nathan had been drowning in isolation without realizing it, until this woman and her father had thrown him a lifeline of connection and purpose. "I'm not good at new beginnings," he admitted. "I've spent too long looking over my shoulder at what's been lost." Olivia's hand found his, warm and certain. "Then perhaps it's time to look ahead at what might be found." Under the vast Montana sky, with Timber Creek quiet below them, Nathan Irwin made the most important decision of his life. Not with words at first, but by slowly lowering his head to Olivia's, giving her time to pull away if she wished. She didn't. Their kiss was gentle, questioning, then deepening with shared understanding of all that had brought them to this moment. "Come to Helena," she whispered when they parted. "Not for my father's offer, or even for me, but for yourself, for the man you could become there." 2 weeks later, Nathan Irwin rode into Helena, Montana Territory, leading a pack horse loaded with his few possessions. The town was larger than Timber Creek, bustling with the energy of new settlement and possibility. He found the Bryson home easily enough, a modest but comfortable house near the newly established academy. Professor Bryson greeted him with genuine pleasure, as if he'd never doubted Nathan would come. And Olivia, her face when she saw him from the porch made every mile of the journey worthwhile. She ran to him without hesitation or pretense, her welcome erasing years of solitary wandering in a single moment. "I was beginning to worry," she said, smiling up at him as he dismounted. "Had some business to finish," he replied, taking her hands in his. "Sold my claim on a piece of land near Fort Laramie." "You sold it?" "But I thought too, for a long time," he interrupted gently. "About what safety meant. About where a man belongs. I was wrong." Over the months that followed, Nathan found his place in Helena with surprising ease. The academy hired him to teach practical frontier skills, tracking, survival, horsemanship, to young men and women preparing for life in the territories. His classes became unexpectedly popular, his first-hand knowledge valued in ways he'd never imagined. Professor Bryson became both mentor and friend, encouraging Nathan to document his extensive knowledge of the Western Territories for future generations. Together, they began mapping previously uncharted areas, combining the professor's scientific approach with Nathan's practical experience. And Olivia, brilliant, determined Olivia, established a small school for the children of settlers too remote to attend the academy in town. Nathan often accompanied her on her teaching circuits, providing protection as she brought education to isolated homesteads. Their courtship progressed naturally, without artificial constraints. Nathan found himself opening to emotions he'd suppressed for years: joy, hope, anticipation. The weight of loss gradually lightened, not forgotten, but no longer defining his every choice. 1 year after their first meeting, on a crisp autumn evening, Nathan asked Olivia to ride with him to a ridge overlooking Helena. The valley spread below them, lights beginning to twinkle as dusk approached. "I brought you here for a reason," he said as they stood beside their horses. "I suspected as much," she replied, her eyes bright with knowing. He took her hands, no longer the wary drifter who had caught her arm on a Timber Creek boardwalk. "You once asked me to save your father, and I promised to save you both. What I didn't realize was how much you would save me." From his pocket, he produced a simple gold ring. "I can't offer you an easy life. The frontier remains dangerous, unpredictable. but I can promise you won't face it alone. I never wanted easy, Olivia answered, tears gathering in her hazel eyes. I wanted real. I wanted partnership. I wanted you. Their wedding the following spring brought together their new community, academy colleagues, students, settlers whose children Olivia taught, even a few familiar faces from Timber Creek. Professor Bryson proudly walked his daughter down the aisle, his academic dignity momentarily abandoned in favor of fatherly joy. Nathan stood waiting for her, clean-shaven and dressed in his finest, scarcely able to believe the path that had led him here. As Olivia joined him, radiant in her mother's restored wedding dress, he recognized the truth that had eluded him for so long. The frontier's harshness wasn't a reason to avoid connection. It was precisely why connection mattered. Love wasn't a luxury here. It was essential sustenance for the journey. 2 years later, Nathan stood on the porch of their home on the outskirts of Helena, watching his wife rock their infant son while Professor Bryson entertained their 3-year-old daughter with tales of Eastern cities and scientific wonders. The academy had grown, as had Nathan's role within it. His detailed maps and practical knowledge had saved countless lives among new settlers. Olivia's educational outreach had expanded to 6 circuit schools, bringing learning to the most isolated corners of the territory. They had built something neither could have created alone, not just a family, but a legacy of knowledge and connection that would outlast them. "What are you thinking about so seriously?" Olivia asked, looking up from their sleeping son. Nathan smiled, the expression now coming naturally to a face once set in permanent wariness. "About promises kept," he answered, "and lives saved, including his own."